For 10,000 years, the Dominion had ruled the Milky Way with an iron grip. Their massive warships patrolled every sector, their advanced technology crushed any resistance, and their empire spanned millions of worlds. They were proud, arrogant, and absolutely certain of their superiority over all other species. That certainty was about to be shattered. On a quiet morning in 2157, Earth's long-range sensors detected something unusual, a fleet of massive ships entering the solar system. The Dominion had finally discovered humanity's home world. Their initial scans of Earth had shown what appeared to be a primitive civilization, barely capable of reaching their own moon. The Dominion's Supreme Commander, Lord Rex, had laughed when he saw the reports. "Another world of primitives to add to our collection," he said to his officers, his scaled skin gleaming under the bridge lights. "Send the standard conquest fleet. They'll surrender within hours, like all the others." What the Dominion didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. Ever since they detected the first signs of alien civilizations, Earth's nations had worked in secret, pooling their resources and brilliant minds to develop technologies that could defend their world. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, massive hidden shipyards housed humanity's secret fleet. In underground bases across Earth, soldiers trained with advanced powered armor and weapons reverse-engineered from recovered alien technology. And in hardened bunkers, quantum computers ran endless simulations of possible invasion scenarios. When the Dominion's fleet arrived in high Earth orbit, they broadcast their standard surrender demand: submit to Dominion rule or face extinction. They expected the usual response: terror, panic, and quick capitulation. Instead, they got silence. Lord Rex frowned at the lack of response. "Launch the first wave," he ordered. "Show them what happens to worlds that dare to defy us." The Dominion ships began their attack runs, their weapon systems powering up. But as they entered the atmosphere, something unexpected happened. Hidden defense platforms around Earth's orbit suddenly activated, their energy signatures masked until that moment by advanced stealth technology. Concentrated beams of quantum disruption energy lanced out from the platforms, catching the Dominion ships completely by surprise. Their supposedly impenetrable shields, which had protected them for millennia, flickered and failed against weapons they'd never encountered before. Before the Dominion fleet could recover from their shock, the ground-based defenses opened up. Railgun batteries launched hypervelocity rounds that punched through the unshielded hulls of the alien ships. Plasma cannons melted through their armor like it was tissue paper. And then humanity's hidden fleet rose from Mars, led by Admiral Tom Banks aboard the EDS Defiant. 500 ships, each one incorporating centuries of human ingenuity and determination, emerged from their concealment to strike at the invaders' flanks. "All ships, execute Battle Plan Alpha," Banks transmitted. "Show these tyrants what happens when they threaten our home." The space around Earth erupted into chaos as humanity's forces tore into the Dominion fleet. Lord Rex watched in horror as his ships, which had conquered countless civilizations, began exploding one after another. "Impossible," he roared, slamming his fist on his command console. "They're primitives. How can they have such weapons?" The answer was simple, though the Dominion would take time to understand it. They had gravely underestimated humanity's greatest strength, the ability to innovate, adapt, and overcome any challenge through sheer determination and ingenuity. As the battle raged on, it became clear that this would not be the quick conquest the Dominion had expected. Instead, it would mark the beginning of humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage, not as another conquered race, but as a force that would shake the very foundations of the Dominion's empire. The war for Earth had begun, and with it, the galaxy would never be the same. The battle for Earth had ended in a stunning victory for humanity, but Admiral Banks knew this was only the beginning. Standing on the bridge of the EDS Defiant, he watched the cleanup crews collecting debris from the destroyed Dominion ships. "Sir," his second-in-command, Jack Wilson, approached with a data pad. Our teams have finished analyzing the Dominion ship wreckage. We've found something interesting. Their faster-than-light drive technology is far more advanced than we thought. Banks nodded grimly. Can we reverse engineer it? Our scientists say yes. But that's not the most important discovery. Wilson's eyes gleamed with excitement. We found their star maps. We know where their core worlds are. This was the opportunity humanity had been waiting for. The Dominion would expect Earth to fortify and prepare for the next invasion. They wouldn't expect a counterattack. Not from primitives. Within weeks, Earth's shipyards worked at full capacity. The captured Dominion technology was integrated into the human fleet, making their ships even more formidable. But humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology, it was their ability to think differently than their alien opponents. The Dominion's military doctrine hadn't changed in thousands of years. Why should it? They'd never lost a war. Their tactics were predictable, their strategies set in stone. This would be their downfall. 3 months after repelling the invasion of Earth, humanity launched Operation Thunderbolt. While the Dominion prepared a massive fleet to crush Earth, Admiral Banks led a small, elite strike force of 30 ships toward their first target, Station 9, one of the Dominion's primary shipbuilding facilities. The station's defenders never saw the attack coming. Using stealth technology that the Dominion sensors couldn't detect, the human fleet emerged from hyperspace inside the station's defensive perimeter. The battle lasted less than an hour. Admiral, Wilson reported, Station 9 is secured. Our Marines have control of all critical systems. The Dominion personnel have surrendered. Banks allowed himself a small smile. Begin Phase 2. Phase 2 was the real genius of Operation Thunderbolt. Instead of destroying the station, human engineers began reprogramming its automated manufacturing systems. Within days, Station 9 was producing ships for humanity instead of the Dominion. When Lord Rex received news of Station 9's fall, he was meeting with the Dominion High Council on their throne world of Prima. His scales had lost their luster, and his once proud posture was bent with worry. Impossible, one of the council members shouted. How could primitives capture our most secure shipyard? The same way they defeated our invasion fleet, Rex replied bitterly. We underestimated them. These humans, they don't think like any species we've encountered before. Before the council could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the palace. On the massive holographic display, red warning icons appeared at dozens of locations across Dominion space. The humans hadn't just attacked Station 9. While the Dominion focused their attention on that battle, smaller human strike teams had infiltrated numerous other facilities across their empire. Supply lines were being disrupted, communication relays sabotaged, and defensive installations disabled. They're not fighting like a primitive species defending their homeworld, Rex realized with growing horror. They're fighting like an elite military force executing a coordinated strategic campaign. The council chamber erupted into chaos as more reports of attacks flooded in. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Dominion faced an enemy that could not only resist them but could strike at the heart of their empire. As panic spread through the Dominion's leadership, Admiral Banks and his fleet were already preparing their next strike. The message to Earth's High Command was brief but historic: Phase 1 complete. Beginning systematic dismantling of Dominion military infrastructure. The counteroffensive has begun. The galaxy was about to learn an important lesson: never underestimate humanity's capacity for warfare, especially when fighting for their survival. As news of humanity's victories spread across the galaxy, something unexpected began to happen. On countless worlds under Dominion control, enslaved species began to whisper about the humans who dared to fight back. Hope, long crushed under the Dominion's boot, started to flicker again. Admiral Banks was reviewing tactical reports when an urgent transmission came through. A representative of the Grey Collective, a species that had been enslaved for 3,000 years, requested a secret meeting. The meeting took place on a neutral mining outpost. The gray representative, who called himself first speaker, was tall and silver-skinned. His large eyes studied Banks carefully. "We have watched your victories against the Dominion with great interest," first speaker said. "For millennia, we thought resistance was impossible. You have proved otherwise." Banks leaned forward. "What are you proposing?" "An alliance. There are 12 major enslaved species in the Dominion. All of us have been waiting, building our strength in secret. We can provide you with intelligence, saboteurs, and hidden resource bases across Dominion space." This changed everything. Humanity had been fighting brilliantly, but they were still vastly outnumbered. With allies, especially ones who knew the Dominion's territory intimately, victory became possible. On Prima, the Dominion throne world, Lord Rex faced increasing pressure. The High Council chamber, once a place of ordered discipline, had descended into chaos. "Our entire defense network in the spiral arm is compromised," one counselor shouted. "These humans aren't just defeating our forces, they're turning our own weapons against us." Another counselor slammed his fist on the table. "And now the slave races are revolting. 3 mining worlds have already fallen to rebel forces." Rex had never felt such fear. The Dominion's greatest strength, its vast territory and countless subjugated worlds, was becoming its greatest weakness. Every defeated outpost provided humans with more resources. Every liberated species joined their cause. Back on Earth, the war room was alive with activity. Colonel Mary Davis, head of Special Operations, presented the latest intelligence to the Joint Chiefs. "The Grey Collective has given us access to their underground network," she reported. "They've been preparing for rebellion for centuries. Hidden weapons caches, sleeper agents, even some stolen Dominion ships. With their help, we've identified critical weak points throughout the Empire." The human fleet, now bolstered by ships from liberated worlds, launched simultaneous attacks across Dominion space. But the true damage came from within. On hundreds of worlds, slaves sabotaged crucial facilities. Communication networks crashed. Supply lines collapsed. Dominion commanders found themselves unable to trust their own automated systems, which had been compromised by Grey Collective tech experts. The Dominion's response was brutal but ineffective. They couldn't tell friend from foe. Every slave was now a potential rebel. Every computer system might be compromised. Their own massive bureaucracy, designed to control their vast empire, became paralyzed with paranoia. Admiral Banks stood on the bridge of the EDS Defiant, watching as another Dominion battle fleet retreated in disarray. Beside him, First Speaker's hologram glowed softly. "The Dominion never understood," First Speaker said. "They thought their technology made them invincible. But you humans showed us that victory comes from adaptation, from thinking differently, from never accepting defeat." Banks nodded. "And from working together. None of us could have defeated them alone. But united. United, we will be free," First Speaker finished. The war was far from over. The Dominion still controlled vast territories and powerful weapons. But their aura of invincibility was shattered. Across the galaxy, billions of beings looked up at the stars and dared to dream of freedom. As the Defiant prepared to jump to its next target, Banks received word that 3 more systems had declared independence from the Dominion. The galaxy was changing, system by system, battle by battle. And humanity was leading the charge. The Dominion's response to their mounting losses was predictable. They turned to their most devastating weapons. Deep within the heavily fortified world of Terminus, their scientists had been developing something called Project Annihilator. Lord Rex stood in the massive underground facility, watching as Chief Scientist Master Ross demonstrated their new weapon. "Observe," Ross said, activating a control panel. In the test chamber below, a beam of sickly green energy struck a captured rebel ship. Within seconds, the vessel's hull began to dissolve, its atomic bonds breaking down at the fundamental level. "The disassembler beam," Ross explained proudly. "It can reduce any material to its basic atomic components. No shield can stop it. No armor can resist it. With this, we can end the human threat once and for all." Rex's scales rippled with satisfaction. Finally, a way to crush these upstart humans and their rebel allies. But the Dominion had forgotten one crucial detail: humans weren't the only ones watching them. Hidden among the facility's maintenance staff was Agent Pete Gray, a human operative surgically altered to look like a member of the Gray Collective. As soon as his shift ended, Pete transmitted an encrypted message to the nearest resistance cell. Within hours, the intelligence reached Admiral Banks aboard the EDS Defiant. "A weapon that breaks down matter at the atomic level?" Colonel Davis asked during the emergency briefing. "If they deploy this across the galaxy." "They won't," Banks said firmly. "Because we're going to destroy it. And we're going to do it in a way they'll never expect." The plan was audacious. Instead of a direct assault on Terminus, which the Dominion would expect, humanity would use their greatest weapon, creativity. First Speaker provided crucial information about Terminus's underground cave networks, mapped by Gray Collective observers over centuries. These natural tunnels ran deep beneath the weapon facility, unknown to the Dominion. "Begin Operation Earthshaker," Banks ordered. Human engineers, working with tech experts from various liberated species, modified their ship's gravity drives. The devices were planted in the cave network beneath Terminus, carefully positioned according to geological surveys. When the devices activated, they didn't target the facility directly. Instead, they manipulated the planet's tectonic plates. The Dominion had built their facility to withstand any attack from above, but they never considered an attack from below. The first tremors were dismissed as natural seismic activity. By the time Master Ross realized something was wrong, it was too late. Massive earthquakes shook the facility, shattering power conduits and collapsing reinforced walls. "Impossible!" Ross screamed as his precious weapon facility crumbled around him. "Our sensors showed no sign of attack." Lord Rex watched in horror as the prototype disassembler beam crashed from its mounting, its delicate components shattering. Years of research, billions in resources, all destroyed without a single shot fired in direct combat. But the humans weren't finished. As the facility collapsed, special operations teams emerged from the cave networks, fighting their way through the chaos to secure vital data cores and research materials. Everything the Dominion had learned about atomic manipulation would now serve the rebellion. In orbit, the Dominion fleet maintained their defensive formation, watching for any sign of human ships approaching. They never detected the real threat underneath their feet until it was too late. When Admiral Banks received confirmation of the mission's success, he allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. The Dominion had tried to build a superweapon; instead, they'd given humanity another victory. "Send word to all rebel forces," he ordered. "The Dominion's secret weapon is destroyed. But more importantly, we've shown them again, there is no defense they can build that we cannot overcome. No weapon they can create that we cannot defeat." Across the galaxy, the news spread rapidly through resistance networks. The Dominion's last hope for a quick victory had been shattered, not by overwhelming force, but by human ingenuity combined with the detailed knowledge of their former slaves. The message was clear: the Dominion's era of unchallenged technological superiority was over. Now, they faced an enemy that could not only match their weapons but could think in ways they never imagined. The destruction of Project Annihilator marked a turning point in the war. The Dominion's grip on their remaining territories began to crack. But like a wounded predator, they became even more dangerous in their desperation. Lord Rex, his position in the High Council now precarious, enacted Emergency Protocol 0, a scorched earth policy. If the Dominion couldn't control their worlds, they would destroy them. Let the humans and their rebel allies inherit ashes, he declared to his loyal commanders. Activate the planetary destabilizers. Any world that rises against us will be rendered uninhabitable. The first world to feel this wrath was Helios Prime, a major agricultural center that had recently declared support for the rebellion. The Dominion fleet arrived without warning, deploying devices that bored into the planet's core, destabilizing its magnetic field. Admiral Banks received the distress call too late. By the time the EDS Defiant arrived, Helios Prime's surface was ravaged by solar radiation, its shield of magnetic protection stripped away. Millions were dead or evacuating. "They're insane," first speaker said, his silver skin pale with shock. They would destroy their own empire rather than lose it. Banks stared at the tactical display, watching as reports of similar attacks came in from across the galaxy. The Dominion was systematically destroying any world they couldn't hold. But in their rage, they had made a fatal mistake. "They've just given us the ultimate weapon," Banks realized. Not a physical one, but a psychological one. He immediately called an emergency meeting with representatives from all allied species. The plan he proposed was bold: use the Dominion's own brutality against them. Colonel Davis coordinated with rebel communication networks to spread footage of the devastation across every remaining Dominion world. Not just the destruction, but the aftermath. The refugees. The ruined worlds. The cost of the High Council's desperation. The effect was immediate. On Dominion-controlled worlds, the civilian population began to turn against their rulers. Even loyal species who had benefited from Dominion rule couldn't stomach the wholesale destruction of inhabited worlds. More importantly, the Dominion's own military started to fracture. Ship captains refused orders to deploy planetary destabilizers. Entire fleets defected rather than participate in what many now saw as madness. Lord Rex watched his empire crumbling from within. In the High Council chamber, previously loyal supporters began to distance themselves from him. Some openly called for surrender to prevent further destruction. "You don't understand," Rex raged at them. "If we show weakness now, everything we've built over 10,000 years will be lost." "It's already lost," a junior counselor dared to speak up. "The humans didn't just defeat our military, they showed the galaxy a different way to exist. One not built on fear and domination." On the bridge of the EDS Defiant, Banks received an unexpected transmission. A group of Dominion fleet commanders requested a secret meeting. They represented nearly a third of the remaining Dominion military forces. "We won't participate in the destruction of civilian worlds," their spokesperson said. "If you can guarantee fair treatment for our people, we're prepared to stand down." The war wasn't over. Hardliners like Rex still commanded significant forces. But the psychological barrier had been broken. The Dominion's perfect image of unstoppable power and absolute authority was shattered. As Banks prepared to meet with the defecting commanders, he received another report. 3 more Dominion worlds had declared independence. Not through military conquest, but through simple rejection of the High Council's authority. "We didn't just beat them with weapons," first speaker observed. "We beat them by showing the galaxy that resistance was possible. That tyranny isn't inevitable." Banks nodded. The Dominion's greatest weapon had always been fear, fear of their technology, fear of their military might, fear of their ruthlessness. But humans had shown that fear could be overcome. And once that lesson was learned, it could never be unlearned. With the Dominion's forces fracturing and systems declaring independence daily, Lord Rex and his most fanatical supporters retreated to their final stronghold, the fortress world of Prima. For 10,000 years, this planet had been the heart of their empire, protected by the most powerful defenses ever created. "Let them come," Rex snarled, watching the massive defense platforms that orbited Prima. "This world has never fallen. It never will." But Prima held more than just military might. Deep in the planet's secure vaults lay the true source of the Dominion's power, the Central Control Matrix, a quantum supercomputer that had coordinated their empire for millennia. Through it, they had maintained control over countless worlds' infrastructure, communication systems, and defensive networks. Admiral Banks studied the intelligence reports with Colonel Davis and First Speaker. The fortress world's defenses were formidable, energy shields that could withstand Nova-level explosions, automated defense systems that could track and destroy thousands of targets simultaneously, and a garrison of 1 million elite troops. A direct assault would cost millions of lives, Davis said grimly. Even with our combined forces, we'd lose half our fleet before reaching the surface. Then we won't assault it, Banks replied. We'll make it irrelevant. The plan they devised was classic human lateral thinking. Instead of attacking Prima, the Allied fleet launched simultaneous operations across the galaxy, targeting every remaining Central Control Matrix relay station. These stations had been the backbone of Dominion control, but now they became a vulnerability. Human hackers, working with tech experts from a dozen species, began a massive cyber warfare campaign. They didn't try to break Prima's defenses, they simply isolated them, cutting off the Central Control Matrix's connections to the rest of the galaxy one by one. On Prima, Rex watched in growing horror as sectors of their network went dark. Without the Matrix's control, automated systems across their remaining territory began to shut down or revert to local control. Restore the connections, he ordered his technicians. But they couldn't. The humans had learned from every previous encounter, adapting their tactics faster than the Dominion could respond. Each attempt to re-establish control was met with a new form of electronic warfare. The Allied fleet maintained its distance from Prima, but their electronic assault was relentless. Teams of human and alien specialists worked in shifts, probing the Matrix's defenses, finding new vulnerabilities, exploiting weaknesses that the Dominion had never thought to protect against. You don't understand what you're doing. Rex broadcast to the fleet in desperation. The Matrix has maintained order for 10,000 years. Without it, there will be chaos. No, Banks replied. Without it, there will be freedom. The galaxy doesn't need your control anymore. As the Matrix's influence shrank, the last Dominion-loyal worlds found themselves truly independent for the first time in millennia. Many immediately declared for the Alliance. Others remained neutral. But none moved to support Prima. In the High Council chamber, Rex's remaining supporters began to abandon him. The mighty Dominion, which had ruled through absolute control of information and resources, found itself cut off and alone. We still hold Prima. Rex insisted. Our defenses are impenetrable. We can rebuild from here. But he was wrong. As the Matrix's power faded, something unexpected happened. Prima's own population, seeing the success of the rebellion across the galaxy, began to rise up. The very species that had once been the Dominion's most loyal servants now turned against their masters. The final battle for Prima wouldn't be fought with warships and energy weapons. It would be won by the spread of an idea, that freedom was possible, that tyranny could be overcome, that the future belonged to those who could adapt and work together. As riot spread through Prima's cities and the Matrix's power waned, Banks received word that even the Fortress world's military garrison was beginning to defect. The Dominion's last stronghold was crumbling from within. Humanity didn't just beat us with superior tactics or technology, a captured Dominion officer admitted. You showed the galaxy that there was another way to live. And once people saw that, no weapon could stop them from choosing it. The end of the Dominion came not with a massive space battle, but with a simple transmission from Prima's surface. The Fortress world's own defense forces, led by their commander Bill Stone, had arrested Lord Rex and the remaining High Council members. Admiral Banks stood on the bridge of the EDS defiant as the news spread across the galaxy. After less than a year of warfare, humanity had helped bring down an empire that had stood for 10,000 years. Their biggest mistake, first speaker observed, wasn't underestimating human military strength. It was failing to understand that strength comes in many forms. The liberation of Prima revealed the full scope of Dominion history. In their secure archives, records showed how they had systematically suppressed technological innovation. Among their subject species, fearing anything that might challenge their control. They didn't just enslave bodies, Colonel Davis said, reviewing the files. They tried to enslave minds. To convince everyone that resistance was impossible, that their rule was the natural order of the universe. But now that order had been shattered forever. As Allied forces secured Prima's key installations, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to decide the galaxy's future. The Great Hall that had once housed the High Council now hosted the First Galactic Assembly. Admiral Banks addressed the gathered delegates, "We didn't fight this war just to create a new empire. Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy, we want to help build something better. A society where all species can grow, innovate, and thrive together." The changes came swiftly. The Central Control Matrix, symbol of Dominion power, was reprogrammed to serve as a galactic communication network, helping worlds share knowledge and resources freely. Former slave species reclaimed their homeworlds. Trade routes opened between previously isolated systems. Lord Rex and his inner circle faced trial for their crimes. But even in his cell, the former Supreme Commander couldn't understand what had happened. "How?" he asked Banks during a final interview. "How did primitives who had barely reached their own moon defeat us so completely?" Banks smiled. "Because you never understood what really makes a civilization advanced. It's not about having the biggest ships or the most powerful weapons. It's about the ability to adapt, to think creatively, to work together despite differences. Humanity didn't win this war alone, we won it by helping others believe in themselves." The aftermath brought challenges. Some worlds, free for the first time in millennia, struggled with self-governance. Border disputes erupted. Pirates and warlords tried to carve out territories in the power vacuum. But something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. Where once there had been only fear and submission, now there was hope. Innovation flourished as species shared their knowledge freely. Worlds that had been enemies under Dominion rule found common ground and formed alliances. 1 year after Prima's fall, the EDS Defiant led a very different kind of mission. The ship visited worlds across the galaxy, not to fight battles, but to help establish universities, research centers, and diplomatic outposts. "Look at this," first speaker said to Banks, showing him data from a former Dominion mining world. Former slaves had combined their traditional knowledge with human engineering principles to develop entirely new forms of energy production. "This is what victory really means," Banks replied. "Not destroying an enemy, but creating something new. Something better." The final entry in Banks' personal log summed up humanity's greatest achievement: "We came to the stars expecting to fight for our survival. Instead, we found our true purpose, helping to free the galaxy not just from tyranny, but from the fear that made tyranny possible. The Dominion ruled through power. We helped overthrow them by showing the power of working together." Across the galaxy, the story spread, how humanity, a young species from a distant arm of the galaxy, had helped overthrow the mightiest empire ever known. But more importantly, they had shown that no power was truly invincible, no fate was truly sealed, and no species was truly alone. The age of the Dominion was over. The age of cooperation and freedom had begun.